Finally, there's, many of you may be familiar with the amnesty law that passed back in 1986 that legalized anywhere from 2.5 to 3 million undocumented immigrants who were in the United States at that time. And obviously there's been a lot of talk about some kind of immigration reform. This has been a hot topic in Congress the last 3 or 4 years. More recently, President Obama has said that he would like to move the immigration debate forward this year. I note that back then, back in 1986, there were about 3 million undocumented people. The current estimate is that right now in the United States there are anywhere from 11.5 to 12 million undocumented. So, as I'll talk about later, all of these individuals are subject to immigration enforcement. So. That's a really, really, really quick overview of the immigration zoo. Now, what I'm leaving out is, a number of other kind of twilight categories or transitional categories. There's something called temporary protected status, for instance, that enables people who are out of status but who hail from countries that are going through natural disasters or civil strife to remain in the United States, temporarily and to get work permits while they're here, so that they can sustain themselves, but also send remittances back home. So these countries include Honduras, El Salvador, Liberia for a long time had temporary protected status. Several other countries in Africa and Asia also are covered by temporary protected status. Whoop. Okay. So I'm going to transition from that to consideration of public benefit eligibility. Public benefit eligibility, as I said at the outset, somewhat matches up with the immigration zoo here, but not exactly. There are a number of major differences that I'll point out. I'm not going to go through this entire table in grueling detail, and you're probably very happy that I won't. But I do want to point out a few things. First off, let me start with the extremes, of eligibility. U.S. citizens eligible for just about anything, so long as they meet the other qualifying criteria. So no real questions there. Undocumented, eligible for virtually nothing. The only thing that undocumented immigrants qualify for is emergency medical assistance. Now, I guess the undocumented children also qualify for public education. Then again, everybody qualifies for public education. So I'm not going to be talking so much about that. But the only means-tested public benefit that the undocumented qualify is emergency medical care. Nothing else. Okay. What about in between? Well, refugees and asylees get particular consideration. They are generally eligible for just about everything within their first 7 years of residency in the United States. Now, the theory behind the 7 years is that in order to qualify for citizenship, one needs to have been a lawful permanent resident for 5 years. So the 7 years was intended as providing enough time to qualify for citizenship and then go through the citizenship process. And so by the end of the 7 years, they'd all be citizens. It hasn't always worked out that way, particularly with elderly refugees. But that at least is the theory. And there have been some extensions, particularly of SSI, if I remember correctly, extending the qualifying period beyond the 7 years. So beyond refugees and asylees, the main distinction that the public benefit laws, as opposed to the immigration laws, brings up is between qualified and non-qualified or unqualified immigrants. And then there are certain distinctions even within the qualified immigrant category. qualified immigrants are, as you might expect, the permanent residents, refugees, asylees. There's another category, another humanitarian category called people who have withholding. That is, people who would face torture if they were returned to their home country. Now, these individuals are not on track to get permanent residence, unlike asylees or refugees, but they are authorized to stay here. People who've served in the military veterans, or people on active duty, and then a whole range of other categories which are actually enumerated on page 4 of this chart. The catch-all term for this is PRUCAL, persons residing under color of law, PRUCAL. And so, these are people who are in the United States. The Immigration Service knows they're in the United States. The Immigration Service is basically leaving them alone, even though they may not have green cards or other kinds of formal status. So, all these individuals fall under the qualified immigrant category. Unqualified immigrants are everybody else. This includes the undocumented, but it may include other categories of immigrants as well. And as I said, generally the undocumented only qualify for emergency medical assistance. So, as I mentioned, there's one major line that's drawn among qualified immigrants, and that's the date of entry. Seems kind of screwy to me, but the federal statutes that govern public benefit eligibility make this distinction. The magic date, as you can see from the chart, is August 22nd, 1996. What's the significance of this date? This is the date on which President Clinton signed the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, otherwise known as welfare reform, a term that I also hate. So, the purpose of this was to, quote unquote, end welfare as we know it. Unfortunately, it ended welfare as we know it mainly on the backs of legal immigrants. So, the theory behind this was, oh my God, immigrants are coming to the United States in order to qualify for food stamps and medical and other welfare benefits. We've got to put a stop to this. So what the Welfare Reform Act did was limit eligibility for people coming in after the enactment of the law, and hence the magic August 22nd, 1996 date. So refugees and asylees remain eligible regardless of their date of entry. The main category of people who are affected by this are lawful permanent residents, green card holders. Okay, so if someone gets their green card after this date, they will generally be ineligible for most forms of federal means-tested public benefits for 5 years. This is the infamous 5-year bar. Okay, there are certain exceptions to this in the SSI program. There are certain qualifications having to do with age and medical disability, but for the most part, this 5-year bar applies. Now, this was actually a matter of some controversy earlier this year in the debate over the SCHIP program. President Bush, when he was still in office, had repeatedly vetoed legislation to extend child health insurance program eligibility to lawful permanent resident children who had not been here for 5 years. When President Obama got elected, Congress passed this reauthorization bill. The Republicans in Congress raised a holy stink about it. Congress passed it anyway. President Obama signed it in one of his first acts in office. So now the 5-year bar no longer applies to lawful immigrant children. Under the age of 18, they are eligible for SCHIP regardless of when they enter the United States.